Hailing from Macomb, Illinois, Commander Clay Mason enlisted in the United States Navy in 1988, quickly rose through the ranks and went through officer candidate school in 1995. He has served in 6 different ships and held a wide variety of interesting positions. For example, he has been the chief engineer in the Aegis Destroyer and the Congressional Liaison for the United States Transportation Command. He is currently the commanding officer of Navy Recruiting District, St. Louis, where he is responsible for recruiting operations across Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, and Western Kentucky. Commander Mason holds a bachelor's degree in International Relations from the University of San Diego and an MBA from Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. He resides near Mascoutah, Illinois, with his wife Jennifer and their 3 children. And Clay is also a member of the Mascoutah, Illinois Rotary Club. So please give a warm welcome to Commander Clay Mason.
Let me turn this on. Is that on? Maybe I don't need it. I can talk pretty loud. It's on. Thanks everybody for having me. I'm not as interesting as the Blue Angels folks who I brought down to KG a couple years ago. But my plan here today is to tell you the great things the Navy's doing for you. My interest in Rotary and my job in the Navy have had an interesting strategic merger, if you will. A lot of the Rotary clubs that I visit have a Student of the Month presentation. Well, it's no coincidence the same students you're honoring as your Students of the Month are the same caliber of students that I'm looking for things like the Navy ROTC scholarship. And in fact, I've met several, over the last 2 years, I've met several Rotary Club Students of the Month who I have introduced to the Navy ROTC scholarship, and they went on to become scholarship award winners. In fact, last month, I have a number of scholarships in my pocket that I can give to qualified applicants on the spot that don't need to go through a board process. And I awarded a scholarship to a young man who is the treasurer of the Interact Club up in Champaign, Illinois, which, as many of you know, the Interact Club is the high school version of Rotary. So to me, there's a synergy there, and you know, you talk about service over self. It's been very rewarding in these last couple of years. Let's go ahead and go to the first slide. Got to set the grounds here because, you know, as I go through the Midwest, there are no ships steaming up the Mississippi River, and you know, people understand intuitively about the Air Force and what the Army does, but they don't really know a lot about the Navy simply because the Midwest, you know, is landlocked. There's not a whole lot out here. So I am talking about ships and submarines, and I'm talking about aircraft that operate at sea. I'm gonna explain to you today what we do. Go ahead. Jump one back. There you go. You only got to touch it once. There you go. There you go. Okay. The biggest question is, you know, why do we even have a Navy? Well, geographically speaking, you know, 70% of the Earth's surface is covered with water, and as the picture shows, you know, this is when I talk at high schools, this is they see this, the kids have seen this in their textbooks. 80% of the world's population lives close to sea. That's been true throughout the history of mankind. You know, and when you live close to sea, events at sea will influence events ashore. I'll talk about that in a minute. But what a lot of people don't understand, but what has been true throughout our civilization, is 90% of the world's goods travel by sea. Okay, so whether you're talking about the Roman Empire or you're talking about you know, 2012, it's true. You know, so the clothes on your back, the cell phone you hold in your pocket, many of the cars that you drive, the things that you use in your daily jobs, the things that you make in your daily jobs that you export overseas. all of these things, all this trade happens, and it requires freedom of the seas to be able to make that happen. And that's what the Navy does. We provide that freedom of the seas around the world. To give you an example of how events at sea influence events ashore, we can all think of the Middle East and a body of water known as the Strait of Hormuz. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Strait of Hormuz separates the Persian Gulf or the Arabian Sea, depending on what you want to call it, from the Indian Ocean. And about 70% of the Earth's oil supply flows through the Strait of Hormuz on tankers. Well, when Iran threatens to blow up, tankers or mine the Strait of Hormuz and thereby closing it, Iran is in effect threatening to block 70% of the global oil from reaching the markets around the world. And you can imagine what kind of impact that would have on our daily lives, and needless to say, our freedom. And when I'm talking to young people, usually I equate this. They can grasp that if there's a limited supply of oil, that gasoline prices are going to go up, and therefore the price of a date on a Friday night just got really expensive. So that's reality, and that's an example of how events at sea can influence events ashore. Go ahead. But we do a great many things around the world. The thing that makes the Navy different from any other branch of service is I don't need to set up a base in another sovereign territory to operate. I don't need to get anybody's permission to use their airspace or to use airfields in their territory. U.S. ships are sovereign U.S. territory, and with 70% of the earth covered by water, we have a lot of freedom to maneuver. But what types of things are we doing? I mean, this picture, this is a mural, but it shows some of the things we're doing every day. Sometimes we're just there showing the flag, and so other countries know that we have a capability to respond. The middle picture is a picture of a boat from one of our ships, and these guys are taking on the Somali pirates. Now, the Somali pirates are in the news all the time because it's sexy and they make a lot of money. But the reality is, piracy is a global it's a global threat. Wherever there's a shipping lane in close proximity to land, and land that is that's in a country or a part of the world that has doesn't have the rule of law that we have over here, piracy is a real risk. So that's some of the stuff we do. We do a lot of humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. So when Hurricane Sandy hit on the East Coast a few weeks ago, the Navy was in position to respond. When the earthquake hit in Haiti a few years ago, the Navy was in position to respond. The bottom right-hand corner is a picture of a Navy diver checking out the pier there in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, to see how we could repair that so we could get relief supplies right to the pier instead of having to boat them in small batches from sea. So those are a couple examples of the things we do every day. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So how do we do it? Well, we do have 300 ships, and on any given day, about 100 of those ships are underway away from their home ports, either deployed or doing training. And the two groups I'm going to talk about are ships that you probably hear about in the news. Okay, the group on the left is called an Expeditionary Strike Group, and we have 11 of these types of aircraft carriers. This is a helicopter carrier, and the group of ships that it steams with carry enough Marines. Remember, I know we got some Marines in the room, right? Carry enough Marines to respond to any contingency and hold it down for about 30 days until the rest of the United States can mobilize and get over there. Or it can respond to any kind of acute type of situation where American interests are in play. Give you a couple examples. I've mentioned a couple of the humanitarian assistance, disaster relief. This platform, these guys are already loaded for bear for that type of mission. But also, if there's a civil war in a country, like Libya or Syria, and we need to get American citizens out quickly, this is the type of outfit that would execute that. The carrier on the right is your standard carrier aviation. This is Tom Cruise, Top Gun. I don't think I've dated myself in this crowd talking about that movie, but instead of flying F-14s in 1986, we're flying F-18s today. We have 10 of these carriers, and the strike range, when you couple the F-18 with an Air Force big wing tanker, the strike range can be pretty formidable. I'm going to talk about this some more later in the presentation. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Here's a picture of where these strike groups are operating today. And when you couple that picture with the 300-odd ships that we have available, 100 of which are underway today around the world, you get a sense for how the Navy's in position to defend the nation's interests abroad. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Give you a couple examples of what we can do. Yesterday it was reported that North Korea launched a long-range missile and actually put a satellite in orbit. Well, we had ships on station for a couple reasons. One, to monitor that launch, and if that launch was in fact an attack on one of our allies, we have the ballistic missile defense capability to shoot that down. But also, obviously, to gather data on the launch to see what kind of capabilities North Korea is building. And North Korea is not they're just the latest one to do this. They're not the only ones that do this. And the proliferation of these weapons make this defense system that much more important. We already have several of these types of ships forward deployed in Japan, stationed over there in Japan for that very reason. We're moving four more of those ships to Europe next year to protect on that side, and obviously we have them stationed here at home at our bases to defend American soil. Go ahead and go to the next slide. One common question I get is in the Midwest is I don't see any Navy in the Midwest because obviously Missouri's landlocked. Afghanistan is also landlocked, so there's no way the Navy is participating in the war in Afghanistan. And that couldn't be further from the truth. The most obvious example is the Navy SEALs that killed Osama bin Laden. Okay? So we know our special forces are in Afghanistan every day. But the biggest way that we play in Afghanistan is using carrier aviation. Now what we do is we put a carrier in the Arabian Sea, and our pilots fly missions in Afghanistan every day. I've got a short video I'm going to try to load up. There must be, I had some technical difficulties with it this morning. It wasn't loading up fast enough. And I think the problem is it's a New York Times website, and I understand this is Rush Limbaugh country. So maybe there's something. I'm going to play it and see if it will.
A Navy pilot and the flight line crew prepared the FA-18 Super Hornet for the aircraft carrier John C. Stennis in the North Arabian Sea. The aircraft is ready. The plane is catapulted into the air. This was one of more than 100,000 close air support sorties in Afghanistan since 2008. This is C.J. Chivers reporting for the New York Times. No NATO fixed-wing pilot has been shot down over Afghanistan since the war began. Equipped with modern sensors and capable of supersonic speeds, these aircraft surveil from...
It's not going to load up fast enough. That's okay. I'll talk you through the things that Mr. Chivers is going to present to you. So the aircraft take off from the aircraft carrier, and it's about 2 hours to Afghan airspace and another 2 to 3 hours up to where they need to do their mission. So you got 5 hours on the front leg of that mission, a couple hours on station, and then 5 hours home, and then you land that $100 million aircraft with a operating price tag of $20,000 an hour on a 1,000-foot runway at sea. You know, so that gives you a picture. In my mind, I'm thinking about what quality of men and women are we looking for to be able to operate that machinery. And then when you think about their mission when they're over the air in Afghanistan, over the ground in Afghanistan, and their job is to protect the troops on the ground, well, that pilot has got to be able to make a decision if the call for fire comes, whether he can, or she, because we have many female pilots today. The pilot's got to decide whether they can hit the target and not cause any collateral damage. Certainly you do not want to injure the people you're trying to protect or any other innocent civilians. So they've got to decide whether which type of weapon they're going to use, if they're going to use a weapon, or if they're going to do a high-speed flyby. 600 knots, F-18 on full afterburner makes a lot of noise and can scare a lot of people away. So that person's got to have the decision making, the character and the moral fortitude to make the right decision. So when you put all that together, it's easy for people to see that the people we're putting in the cockpits of these airplanes are the top 1% that America has to offer. There's just no question about that. But what I often get from people, if I'm putting the best America has to offer in the cockpit of that aircraft, somehow when you talk to parents and you talk to educators about their kids enlisting in the Navy, somehow, oh, that job is for people who can't do anything else, or that job is for, the people who don't have any other options, or maybe they need to get something right in their life. But I'd ask you, if I'm putting the top 1% America has to offer in a $100 million aircraft, who do you think I'm going to trust to turn a wrench on that aircraft? Go ahead and go to the next slide. Who do you think I'm going to trust to build the bombs, the laser-guided bombs, and to load the weapons in that aircraft? Who do you think I'm going to trust to work on the sophisticated sensors and communication devices for that aircraft? Or the launch catapults, or the recovery tripwires. By the way, this is a nuclear power aircraft carrier. Okay, so when you think about the technology that we use every day and the teamwork that's involved, you quickly see that I need the best and brightest in America to do these jobs. And in fact, among American high school students today, among American high school seniors today, 2 out of 3 are disqualified for military service. Okay? 2 out of 3 American high school students could not enlist in the armed forces if they wanted to. Incidentally, only about 10% want to. So when you look at the cross-section of 10% want to join the service and only about 30% are qualified, it's I'm really looking for a very specific type of person, and that presents a challenge. So the next question is, why are so many kids disqualified from military service? Well, there are 2 reasons. One is factors they cannot control. Okay, a kid can't help the body he's born with or she's born with. They can't help if they have certain medical conditions that are disqualifying. They can't help that they're not smart enough to pass the test, and that's the reality. Only about half of Americans are smart enough to pass the test to get into the armed forces right now. And then there are factors that they can control, and this gets much more contentious. So when I'm talking to young kids, a lot of them don't realize that having too many speeding tickets can disqualify you for armed service. Any kind of drug use certainly is disqualifying. Any kind of involvement with the law, minor possession of alcohol, or trespassing, or any of the things that you and I did when we were kids that were just, kids being kids. Well, today, you throw an arrest on top of that and you have a document trail, that person's disqualified from military service. Okay? A lot of kids these days are putting ink on their bodies, tattoos that disqualify them. And I tell you, it's kind of troubling for me. Part of my job is, excuse me, part of my job is I have to review every tattoo on every person that we put in the Navy. I have to personally look at it. Okay, so I enlist about 1,000 enlisted folks a year, maybe about 1,200 a year, and another 150 officers. So I look at a lot of ink. And the stuff that these kids are putting on their bodies, they have no idea that the design that they think is cool is actually a gang sign or a sign from a hate group or something like that. And to them, well, what I do, I mean, I just like the design. Well, but if I put you on a ship and you're living in close quarters with somebody who was in that gang and is running from that gang, we have just caused a big problem inside of a military unit, and I can't have that. So I'll just let you in on a common one. You know the Budweiser B with the crown on it? Pretty prominent around this part of the country with Anheuser-Busch. Guess what? Big gang sign. Big gang sign. The Latin Kings, the Budweiser crown is a sign that you remember the Latin Kings. You can't make this stuff up. So tattoos are a big issue in these young kids. I don't know who's giving them permission to get these tattoos, but they're all over the place. And the other thing they don't understand is position. If you can see a tattoo in the uniform I'm wearing right now, you're not getting in the military. So anything on the neck, anything on the head or the face, you're not getting in the military. Yes, sir.
I was just going to ask her before I forgot. Can they go and have that tattoo removed and then requalify?
They can have it removed or covered. But here's the thing. Let's say I've got a kid who has an arrest warrant for drug paraphernalia, and he has an arrest history for drug paraphernalia, and he had 6 days, or he was expelled from school for fighting, and had to finish school at a different high school, and he's got that tattoo. So maybe he removes the tattoo that's a sign of gang use, but he has other indicators that it's really questionable whether he was part of a gang or not. I mean, it's very, very hard to make that decision. In some cases, yes, I do have one young man, he's got a tattoo on the neck. It's a benign, I mean, it's not a controversial tattoo at all, it's just the position on it. You can see it on his collar. And he's had, I think, 15 laser treatments to have it removed, and you can still see it. And how painful that is, and every couple months he comes back into my office and he's in tears. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for it. So the tattoos are a pretty big issue, which is kind of surprising because tattoos have been, they're in our culture as Americans and certainly as sailors, right? But that's the way we're becoming a much more professional force. So the bottom line I want you to take away is we really are looking for America's best and brightest. I mean, I can't make you serve in the military, and I certainly don't want anybody there who doesn't want to be there. Go ahead to the next slide. So here's my territory that I cover. So you can see I'm on the road quite a bit. My office is in downtown St. Louis. I have about 250 recruiters, 250 recruiters depending on the day, spread out all over the territory. I've got a station here in Cape Girardeau, another one in Farmington, another one down in Poplar Bluff on this side of the river, and then up in Festus and Arnold as you get on into St. Louis. So we're pretty busy. And I recruit, my guys and gals recruit all enlisted, all officers that you wouldn't believe some of the jobs I have for officers. Everything from ship drivers and pilots to intelligence officers and doctors, dentists, and all different specialties. And I didn't know some of these specialties existed in the medical profession. So it's very specific to try to find these folks. So, and we also. The thing that I love the most is the Navy ROTC scholarship, because believe me, when you're interviewing these kids for this scholarship, these kids are the best America has to offer, and it's really rewarding to talk to some of these young kids with the drive and motivation. So that's my presentation, and I appreciate your attention. With that, I'll open the floor to any kind of questions you might have. Go ahead, sir.
Where all do you have Navy ROTC detachments?
Sure. There are about 160 NROTC units around the country. I always tell kids, any university you want to go to, there's probably an ROTC unit there. That makes the Kansas State people mad because there's a unit in Lawrence at Kansas, but there's not one in Manhattan at Kansas State. But around here, Mizzou has a unit. I've got one in Illinois, Purdue, Oklahoma, and I think Texas. There's not one in Arkansas, but there is one across the river in Nashville at Vanderbilt. So, and they're public and private. So Northwestern University or Boston College or the University of San Diego, Notre Dame. And another nice thing about that is the ROTC units mostly are at the big schools. But in many cities, there's also several smaller colleges in there. So if I want to go to one of the small liberal arts colleges or something, I could go there and just do my ROTC training at the big university. Yes, sir.
Did I understand you correctly to say that it costs $25,000 an hour to fly?
$20,000 an hour to fly the FLT. That's what's in that documentary I was going to show you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How is the recruiting, since we're winding down Afghanistan and, the Navy SEALs have been extremely popular here over the last 2 or 3 years. How's it going?
Well, my recruiting numbers aren't going to change. The mission doesn't change. The Navy's holding steady at about 320,000. What's been changing is the different types of jobs that I'm recruiting for. And also technology has helped me in my search. So 5 years ago, the way we recruited was in volume. So just bring me as many people as you can. I'll put them, we'll put them where we need to after the fact. And we've had a big technology change, and now it's supply chain management 101. So I'm looking for, to give you an example, I'm looking for an electrician to fill this seat in this class on the 30th of March, class update. So that means the guy's got to go start boot camp on this date. So my guys are looking for a person who can go to that job on that date. And it's very, very specific, especially when you're talking about the high-end jobs, nuclear power, SEALs, air rescue, linguists, those types of things that are very, very hard to find. I mean, if you can be an electrician, there's a number of different jobs that I can work you into in that type of field. But not many people. So the pool's pretty big. But not many people can be a linguist or a linguist in a specific language that I'm putting down. So I think recruiting is changed in how we do our scouting, and it's also changed. My budget's been slashed by 60% over the last couple of years, so it's harder from that respect. But the tools are there to be smart about it. Yes,
Are you recruiting older then?
What's that?
Are your recruits a little bit older then, if you're looking for specific skill sets?
Yes, but that's more a function of the time of year that we're in. Let me give you an example. A young man or woman who's already in the workforce can give their boss a 2-week notice and go get on a bus and go to boot camp. Okay? Whereas a kid who's in high school, I can't ship him to boot camp until next summer after they graduate. And as we all know, I mean, I think back to when I was in high school. I enlisted when it was March of my senior year. And as soon as I had that contract, you can imagine what happened to my grades. Right? My parents were worried about me graduating, quite frankly. I'm going to the Navy. I don't have to worry about that. Well, I'm telling you, today, if I got a high school senior and they have a contract with me. They're showing me their progress reports, and if their grades fall off, I tear up their contract, because that's not the kind of person that I want. Right? I've got plenty of other people that are doing their job. I'm not taking the guy or gal that just wants to slack through life. You know, things are much, much different than they were even a few years ago. So yeah, that's, I guess, older, but not much. Had a hand over here, yes, sir.
Yeah. How much of a role has the social media stuff played in your recruitment?
It's been wonderful. That's, frankly, the social media is what has helped me overcome my budget shortfall. Because all the kids, that's where the kids are. They're in cyberspace. They're on social media, and if a recruiter can establish trust in an area, he can get a pretty wide reach and get his word out, and people tend to follow is not the right word that I'm looking for. But the word of mouth gets out there. They see a couple of friends joining the Navy, and that person's got their act together. Hey, maybe I should check into that. So the social media really plays into that. The recruiters that lie or aren't really trained very well, so they give bad information and they lose their credibility. Social media is a killer for them. I mean, if they're on social media and they don't serve an applicant or a prospect or a future sailor properly, they're done. They're not going to be effective. So that leads into a common myth is that a recruiter will lie or cheat or say whatever he can to get that person on the bus. And I'm telling you, as the CO, that better not be true. Because I'll fire the guy, and he'll be either out of the Navy or back to the fleet. But B, these guys and gals are graded on that person making it through boot camp. So the person that they go out to hire today, if they had them lie to conceal any information or they were mistreating them, it's going to come out along the way, and it's going to come right back on that recruiter. So all the incentives are there for good behavior. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
How do you find your recruiters?
We have a pretty elaborate screening process, and the government sends us nominees, and that's who comes. A typical recruiter around in my territory is from this area. So they just want to come home for a while and give something back. Maybe they're deciding whether they want to stay in the Navy or get out, and recruiting is a good place to come home and reestablish some networks. Well, I know you've all got day jobs, and I've got a meeting in Paducah tonight, but I really appreciate your time, your attention. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll be sticking around if you all have any questions after the meeting.